Welcome, guys, to another edition of the Back and Forth podcast. As Joey can see, or as you can see, Joey's got a little prop with him. Did you get that in rehab, by the way? Is that like the souvenir they give out?
Fuck off. I'm never getting rid of this. This is a souvenir from when UNLV lost to Boise State in the Mountain West quarterfinal. Come on, man.
Don't worry about that. All right.
It's a souvenir, dude. I'm going to put this in a frame. Just hang it up against the wall. No one's ever going to touch it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Go ahead then.
But in all seriousness, thank you all for tuning into the Back and Forth podcast. Got a little bit to get to on the show today, and as Joe can tell, and as you can tell, we got some UNLV hoops to get to. Big priority of business. Just finished wrapping up watching their quarterfinal disappointment. Not even going to call it a game because, let's be honest, it was a disappointment all around. We'll get into that this episode, and so let's get it kicked right off.
Yeah, really disappointing, especially the way UNLV was kind of ending their regular season, winning 5 straight, being 17-14, overall tied for second place in the conference, and then to come in today, a lot of energy. A lot of people expected UNLV to win this. A lot of people expected to then get that rematch against San Diego State. Both have won apiece. UNLV, by the way, is the only team to give San Diego State a loss this year. San Diego State is 29-1 right now, and only lost to UNLV. So a lot of people expected UNLV to come out and lose this game today, and a lot of things played in a factor. Elijah Murchie-Long not playing hurt UNLV tremendously. Free throws, UNLV missing 10 free throws today. If they would have just made 4, because like Matt said, those last 2 free throws at the end were just kind of pointless. If UNLV would have just made 4, this game goes in overtime. They win 5, they win the whole thing, and we're not, worrying, or we're not here talking about UNLV losing to Boise State. We're talking about them playing San Diego State tomorrow. So definitely disappointing. Really disappointing way to end the season. Excuse me. Haven't made the tournament in about, 7 years now?
Too long.
I believe this is the 5th year in a row they've lost in the quarterfinal. So it's really, I really thought this was the year they would have pulled it off and made it to the semifinal. I really felt good about them, honestly, making it to that championship game on it, and competing at least at a high level. And we're saying the old phrase again. We'll see next year. Next year's the year. Next year's the year. This team is gonna be really good, and that may be true. You have David Jenkins coming in and a lot of good recruits, but it's getting tiring saying next year. You're kind of at the point where you want results now.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Watching this game, Boise State was not that much better of a team today.
They played really bad today.
I think it partially, it did keep UNLV in this game because UNLV did play pretty soft in a few different areas, especially on defense. It seemed like they were getting pretty outworked on the boards, especially late when it really mattered. I think was it Williams, number 23. He had a really good showing today for the Broncos.
He's an absolute beast for the Broncos today.
I think really, that backbone of that team that really, made some shots down the stretch that, obviously propelled the Broncos to a 67-61 victory. But I think if you're going to look at anything from the Rebels this season, or, I guess maybe this season too, but particularly this game is, they lost this game on the free throw line. You don't win games going 16 of 26. You miss 10 free throws, and really, you take those 2 free throws away, like Joe said at the beginning of this, from Boise that were kind of meaningless, and 65-61, you make half of those free throws that you missed, you win the game by a point. And like Joe said, we're talking about a Rebel victory and playing SDSU tomorrow night, and instead we're talking about a season-ending loss to Boise in the quarterfinals. Definitely pretty disappointing. Kind of hoping that next year, like Joe said, we're kind of the recycled phrase, we'll see next year. And, next year's team does look pretty promising, though. I will say if there's a positive to come out of the UNLV basketball program, it is that, next year is looking fairly promising, especially if, Bryce Hamilton and Amari Hardy both decide to come back for another year. Pair that up with David Jenkins Jr., who was the second highest ranked college transfer this past offseason in all of college basketball, and averaging 20 points a game over at SDSU with TJ Otzelberger. So it's not like there's a huge
San Diego State. South
Dakota State, excuse me. So it's not like there's.
No, you're good. You said it right. It's just a lot of people probably thought SDSU meant San Diego State.
Gotcha. But yeah, there's not really a huge adjustment there for David, just because he has played with TJ obviously for a couple of years now.
Comfortable within the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think as long as they can get this chemistry right, I don't think it's necessarily out of the question, for UNLV to piece together a pretty decent season this coming year, especially given what we saw towards the end of this regular season, even, winning the last 5 in a row, getting to 12 league wins, obviously a pretty notable accomplishment, especially with the Mountain West, growing in size and whatnot. 12-6 in the first year of TJ Otzelberger era is still pretty impressive in league. Finished technically tied for second, but because of the way the tiebreaker works in the league, UNLV was dealt the 4th seed, given that Utah State. Yeah, no, we're done with that. Okay, we're done. Given that Utah State and Reno both held the tiebreaker over the Rebels, that gave them the 4th seed in this tournament. But nonetheless, I think not a terrible first year from TJ. Obviously, as Joe and I have probably said on numerous different occasions, whether it be on radio, on this, whatnot, you kind of have to give first-year coaches a little bit of a hall pass a little bit, just because there are a lot of bugs to work out, a lot of kinks, and we saw that a lot in non-conference, and it's kind of weird, kind of watching today, it seemed like those same kinks and those same bugs kept, coming back up and biting the Rebels. Looked very flat on offense, missing wide open layups, missing dunks even, stuff that should be gimmies, and you should be able to count on, getting 2 points out of that possession. Rebels couldn't do today. And it's, I know we see this a lot with the Rebels, but it's the little things that bite them in the ass. And it certainly did today.
Yeah. I'm absolutely exhausted just overall from today. But,
man,
it's just really getting tiring, constantly saying, next season, and to constantly be in this position. But hopefully, coming next year, you'll have Hamilton. Hopefully, he decides to stay. Hardy decides to stay, and you'll have all those recruits coming in. Plus, you add David Jenkins Jr. on the mix, Johnny Antonio off the bench. They have a real shot to be a real good team next year.
Mbake Jeong should be back, correct?
Mbake Jeong, I think he'll transfer, but if we get him back, then obviously I'm not going to complain there. But hopefully, next year's the year. We can get back to the tournament and back to dancing and back to making runs in the conference tournament. But before we wrap things up, overall season grade for UNLV. I'll give them a C+. Reason I think their non-conference slate was probably a D-. Other than their competitive games with Kansas State and whatnot, they were D- in non-conference play. They were really bad, especially that loss to Texas State. But in conference play, they were a B+. They were a B+. And I guess that all kind of goes up to a C or C+. So I'll be nice to give them a C+. But yeah, you got to give your, TJ Otzelberger a break. I think he showed a lot of promise this year, especially in conference play, winning 12 out of 18 games, going 12-6. First time they've done a lot of these things in nearly a decade, it seemed like. So definitely going in the right direction, but hopefully he just keeps this momentum going hopefully this thing just doesn't slow down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Hopefully he just keeps this going the next year. And I generally do hope they play in the CBI or the CIT tournament for experience and chemistry and to maybe give these guys a little bit of boost of energy. Because, again, we saw what happened when UNR ended up doing that tournament and the success that program has now. And I think UNLV should stop holding themselves to this high standard that they hold themselves at because they haven't really done anything relevant in basketball in about 30 years. So they need to play in that CBI tournament if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'd probably give them maybe a little bit of a B-, only because they did have that pretty notable win on the road against San Diego State. Now I'm confusing myself. San Diego State, a top 5 team at the time. I think that shows a lot of promise going forward in the future that, UNLV can compete with these teams and they could certainly win games when called upon, for the most part. And I think B- just because from the simple fact, like we said, this is a first-year coach. And, expectations, we weren't kind of really sure what to expect out of this team just because we weren't sure how it was going to mesh. I think the guys have a better feel for each other now after having a season under the system. They have a better feel for TJ Otzelberger, and I couldn't agree more. I think they do need to play in this either the CIT, the CBI. If they are selected for a postseason tournament, they should definitely take advantage of that opportunity. We saw in recent years Reno do the same thing. First year under Eric Musselman, played in the CBI, won the CBI, and progressed on from there on to have a pretty decent 2 or 3 years after that. Getting 30+ win seasons, making the NCAA tournament, being ranked 10th for the majority of a season. and making it to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. Those are all very positive things. And I think that all started with, their postseason experience in the CBI, gaining that, knowledge and that postseason feel of playing 3 games in 4 days or 3 games in 3 days, however it works out, so that when they have to play even the conference tournament come next season, they're already ready for that. They know, okay, conference tournament's here, we know how to play these amount of games in this short amount of time, or they play in even the Maui tournament, which they will be playing in the non-conference. It's going to be the same deal. They're going to have to play, back-to-back days or every other day, something like that. So I think it'll get them ready for next season, and hopefully it boosts them forward like it did likewise for Reno.
Yep. So another season in the books. No matter how UNLV finishes, 0-31, 31-0. Me and Matt's love for UNLV basketball, I think, will never change.
That's right.
We'll probably be up in the Thomas Mack till we're 60, 70 years old.
We'll have our kids there.
Rooting on the struggling Runnin Rebels.
That's right.
And we'll have the 1990 championship banner with all the spider dust and everything, or the spider webs on it.
You
and
gotta
all
squint
the
to kind of see what it says.
You gotta wipe all the dust off and everything. There it is.
Oh.
There it is, 1990 national champs.
I hope we see another championship before that time.
I don't think we will, but
that's
hopefully we just see some success.
It's a good 40 years from now.
Yeah, hopefully we just see some success back within the program. And you can guarantee come November that me and Matt will both be in the Thomas and Mack Center watching the Rebels kick off another season. And hopefully next year ends a lot differently than it did, in a positive note, than it did this year.
Absolutely, and a fun fact: come next season, I'll be able to drink at these games. So if they're
you'll
doing
be an alcoholic.
so if they're doing really terrible, well, guess what? There's always a positive.
Yes, Matt will be a functioning alcoholic.
My rehab officer doesn't like that I said that, by the way. So I'm sure I'll hear about it after.
He's already in rehab.
Oh,
He's not even allowed to drink legally yet. So imagine what the story's going to be next year.
It's just illegal if somebody finds out, man.
And with that being said, another UNLV year in the books, and make sure you guys stay tuned. Doesn't mean it's the end of the podcast. We'll definitely be bringing NBA content, NFL offseason content, Golden Knights content, and many more. And also we'll bring some updates to the UNLV offseason, whether it be transfers and new players added to the program. So make sure you guys stay tuned, or just come back in November if you're only just care about UNLV basketball during the season.
If we make it to November, I don't know. I mean, the way UNLV athletics has been,
with the way the coronavirus is spreading right now, I don't think either one of us will be here in November.
Yeah, I don't know. But thanks y'all for tuning in to this edition of the Back and Forth podcast. Make sure y'all stay tuned. We got plenty more coming up. Big NBA. We're gonna start coming in with some NBA postseasons starting to creep a little bit closer.
Right. Make sure you turn into the campus breakdown.
Good point.
Monday through Friday on the 91.5, the Rebel HD2. Download the app. Tune in 6 to 7 Monday through Friday. And then you also have Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m., 4 quarters with me, Matt, and our good buddy, Josh.
That's right. We'll